order for the CRA Board. It is Thursday, September 8th at 3 o'clock in the afternoon. So we've got, colleagues, a full agenda, but also at 5 o'clock we have the public hearing on the proposed budget. So we will make it through the agenda. We'll probably be done beforehand. If not, then we will stop, have the public hearing, come back and finish the meeting as scheduled. On top of that, you probably noticed that the Mayor Pro Tem is not with us today. He is participating telephonically, and so I don't know if we need it or not, but let's go ahead and just take a motion allowing him to participate.
I move that the Mayor Pro Tem be able to participate electronically or telephonically.
Second.
Excellent. All right, there's a motion by Commissioner Williams-Cox, seconded by Commissioner Porter, to allow the Mayor Pro Tem to participate by telephone. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed. Passes unanimously.
Is he connected?
Mr. Mayor?
Okay.
Excellent. Curtis, I hope you've had good travels today and everybody's safe and happy and doing well.
Yeah, we are. We
Excellent.
are
Wonderful.
in Annapolis now and got a little time before the event start up this way.
Well, it's a big event for the family, and please tell your daughter congratulations, and the city is extremely proud of her service to this country.
Yes.
Thank you. I will do that.
And
Absolutely.
And Mr. Mayor, speaking of this country,
Sure.
we've if we're keeping up with current events, we lost the Queen.
I heard that Queen Elizabeth II did pass away today.
Yeah.
Yes.
So we just, but for other countries,
For other
we
countries,
wanna
yes. Yes, yes,
keep them in
yes.
our prayers and thoughts as well.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Okay, Mr. Cox, do we have any agenda modifications today?
No, sir.
Okay, we have. Okay, no worries. Let's go ahead and move into our presentations. I believe Dr. Kim is here to present on the Greater Frenchtown Southside CRA, and if I do believe so, this will be your last presentation, Dr.
It
Kim?
will be, it will be. So I guess that was going to be my last part of the update, but I will be stepping down from the CAC in November. However, I've found we have a great person coming in, replacing me. She's Dr. Kelly Kinahan, who just joined our department. She comes from University of Louisville in Kentucky and has extensive experience doing community engaged scholarship, is really passionate about the works of the CRA. So I'm sure you'll find it'll be a pleasure working with her as well. I also wanted to thank you for everything that the board has done to sort of institute these lines of communication, allowing me to give you updates. It's been a real pleasure, and I look forward to working with you in other capacities in the future. But that was going to be the last part of my update. The first part of my update, it's been a while since I came before you. I couldn't make the June meeting, so Vice Chair Walter McDonald provided you with the update. I wasn't also there at the July 11th meeting, but I'm here to just run through the agenda items. So there was a pre-application review for a project proposed by Mr. J. Morrell on a new property, but it was a pre-application, so the CAC members, was just informing and offering feedback, initial feedback. And then there was a proposal by the planning department for funding for wayfinding signage along FAMU Way, which had been recommended to be rejected by the CAC. So that was the second item. And then the third item on the agenda was the budget, which I believe has been recommended unanimously by the CAC members, as all of our previous comments had been incorporated in the budget, the proposed budget. Our next meeting will be November 7th, shortly followed by the board meeting on the 10th, at which point you'll likely have a new chair and presenting before you. So thank you.
Excellent. Dr. Kim, I want to say how much I have personally enjoyed working with you. I think single-handedly you have played such a pivotal role of streamlining and making sure that our CAC is successful, and you bring a specific skill set that will be sorely missed. Because I understand you're not just stepping down as chair, you're stepping down off the board because of professional responsibilities.
Exactly. Thank you. I appreciate that.
But thank you so much for everything.
Thank you.
Any questions for Dr. Kim on the report?
I just
Sure.
want to say thank you as well. I've enjoyed working with you. I've enjoyed our one-on-one that we had when you first came in to being the chair. And thank you for very skillfully working with our diverse group in bringing structure and unity so that when
Yes.
we got the report from you, we knew that it had, you spoke for the group. So thank you for that. It's really appreciated.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Excellent. Thank you, Dr. Kim.
Thank you.
We appreciate it. It's been brought to my attention that we do not have a presentation or an update from Kyle Phelps, the DRC chair. So we do not have an update right now. However, because we have a light agenda, I do see Elizabeth Emanuel here, the executive director of the Downtown Improvement Authority. Like a second or two, any updates or anything you'd like to bring to our attention? Love to have you. And for the future, Elizabeth, if you ever think that there's an opportunity, we would love to put you on the agenda formally for presentations periodically. I think that it's important for us to keep abreast on what's going on downtown.
Yeah, great point. We actually have a lot going on. So I appreciate the opportunity to say hello to you all and share the things that we're working on. One of the things that most impacts our downtown businesses right now is some cleanup concerns that we have been creatively addressing. We've gotten a lot of feedback over that, and we'll be hosting a community cleanup as well as looking into pressure washing solutions for the areas along College and Adams, specifically from Park to City Hall. We'll be namely addressing those during game days when we see a lot more influx of folks within our downtown.
Sure.
One of the ways that we are creatively addressing some of the slower downturn in business in downtown due to college students being gone and session being gone is actually a music crawl. So on Thursday at 5 to 10 p.m., we will have 8 locations. We'll have We'll have 6 local bands playing in front of 8 local bands playing in front of 6 locations within downtown. It gets complicated. There's yard signs. It'll all be very easy once you arrive. This is for a direct benefit to our businesses as well as our musicians within downtown. We also have a yoga that's been going on in Clayman Plaza at 6 p.m. And on the 17th, we will have another concert in Cascades. All of our events are cultural events that are free. They're meant to eliminate barriers for people to come access the incredible talent that we have located within our community and be sure to help our businesses in the area. So we invite the public to come out and attend those. And we hope you all know that we are working hard at keeping downtown thriving economically and beautiful and clean as well.
Excellent. I didn't mean to put you on the spot, and I'm sorry, but glad to have you here and have a presentation.
Anytime.
Any
Thank you for the
questions for Ms.
opportunity.
Manuel? Great. Keep up the good work.
Thank you.
We enjoy the relationship with the Downtown Improvement.
Likewise.
Great. Do we have any other presentations, Mr. Cox, to come before the CRA today?
No, sir.
Okay, we'll take public comment on the items as we address them. So let's move right into the consent agenda. Has anything been pulled off the consent agenda?
No, sir, we're ahead.
Okay.
Move
Any
consent.
public comment on the consent agenda? Okay.
Speakers.
Okay. No speakers?
Move consent.
It's been probably moved by Commissioner Matlow, seconded by Commissioner Porter. Seeing no further discussion, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed?
Aye.
Passes unanimously 5-0. We're on the Greater Frenchtown Southside District Policy Formation and Direction 7.01. Mr. Cox.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. We'll give a brief presentation of this project. This is a Business Facility Improvement Program grant for 1215 South Monroe Street. It'll be given by Sheila Williams.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you very
Absolutely.
much. This is agenda item number 7.01 for the property located at 1215 South Monroe Street. The property owner is Mr. Ryan Weddington. We did receive an application from their representative, Ms. Christina Yeomans, with Oliver Sperry Renovations for this potential business facility improvement grant program. The property is located again at 1215 South Monroe Street. To me, that is at the northeastern quadrant, located along South Monroe Street and Oakland Avenue or FAMU Way. The property is currently utilized as a mercantile, or what we would call a motor sports store, where they sell like motorcycles and four-wheelers, that type of thing. The subject property of the building that's on site is right at approximately 13,000 square feet, where you have 12,470 square feet with 570 square feet of ancillary use. What you see there currently is what the actual property looks like currently. It actually does have the mural on the side, and again, it's the property that's located at the northeastern quadrant as you go under the overpass. So the property owner is looking forward to doing a complete renovation of the facade, exterior facade, in addition to lots of improvements on the interior of the property or the building. Our BFIP program, as you know, does not allow for costs to be attributed to items that are items interior under this program. So all of the costs associated with this request through the CRA under the Business Facility Improvement Grant Program are items that would be considered eligible items to the exterior of the building and to the site. So the property owner, Mr. Orion Weddington, would like to request $50,000 through the program, which is the maximum amount that a property owner or tenant or leasee can get under the program. The first $20,000, as you know, is at what we consider to be a no match. With every dollar after that $20,000, 20,000 and a penny, the applicant has to do a dollar for dollar match. So what you should see on the screen is some of the improvements that the property owner, along with their consultant, again, Oliver Sperry Renovations, that they're intending to do. Adding the Black Bow Coffee Shop, which really is kind of the exterior of the building, and doing a complete front building facade, adding new storefront glass windows, adding awnings, creating a new pedestrian walkway, which is going to be ADA accessible to the actual door, doing a new side stairs, and a side ADA ramp, and more. So with that, staff did do a review of the submittal and the application, and we did find that that is consistent with the redevelopment plan and programmatically. This information was included in your agenda packets to include the staff review, the application report summary, construction bids, and renderings. And staff finds that that is consistent with the redevelopment plan and with the program. And in the agenda, we had two options listed for you, which would have been option one, to approve the application for grant funds in the amount of $50,000 for facade and improvements to the property located at 1215 South Monroe Street, and authorize the CRA staff to enter into a business facility improvement grant program, agreement, and mortgage. Once an applicant is wanting more than, I believe it's $25,000, in addition to us entering into an agreement, we also enter into a mortgage for the forgivable loan, and we forgive them 1/60th of the amount of money that they have over, that's 5 years, over the course that they have do the improvements. Also, we had it as option number two, to do not approve the application for grant funds in the amount of $50,000 for facade and site improvements to the property located at 1215 South Monroe Street, and do not authorize the CRA staff to enter into a business facility improvement program, grant agreement, and mortgage with the applicant, and to provide staff with an alternate direction if you chose option two. Staff does recommend that the CRA board approve this item as option number one. Approve the application, allow staff to enter into doing their agreement and the mortgage with the property owner. Representative, Mr. Bill Oliver, is here with me today, and together we should be able to answer any questions or concerns that you may have. So thank you.
Wonderful, Ms. Williams. Thank you. Appreciate it. Do we have any other public comment on this item?
We do not.
Oliver, thanks for being with us. Answer any questions we may have. Let's turn it over. Any discussion, comments?
Move acceptance
Mr. Mayor.
of the recommendation.
Okay. It's been properly moved by Commissioner Williams-Cox, seconded by Commissioner Porter. You are recognized, Mayor Pro Tem.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just out of curiosity, I know there was some of the area along that South Monroe corridor, south of the railroad overpass, that was in a brownfield area. Is this property in any way a part of that?
I am not sure, I'm not familiar, but we can reach out to our Sister Department Environmental Services. I would assume, even if it is, if there's a building, there's development that is active, I would assume if it was, that it's already been cleaned up under
Okay.
phase 1, and if it needed any kind of remediation under phase 2. But we can verify that and get that information back to you.
Okay, if you would. I never knew if that particular building was in the brownfield, but I know that there are, especially a little further south where the dry cleaners used to be, but I didn't know if it included this building as well.
We'd be happy to get that answer for you.
Yeah,
Mr.
Okay.
I'm pretty sure it's not, because when Orion purchased the building, he had phase 1 and phase 2 done
Right.
years ago, so,
Okay.
I would assume not.
Okay. Mr. Mayor Pro
Okay.
Tem, you have the floor.
That was all I had.
Okay.
Mr. Mayor, thank you.
Well, we have a motion for Commissioner Matlow.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just one question, the total project, is that the front and back building that's being done, or just the?
No, Jeremy, the front facade is 475,000.
Okay.
Back is a separate permit for a bike shop and a coffee shop.
Okay,
It's not on this cost at all. It's probably another.
okay, that's helpful, thank you.
Great. It's been properly moved by Commissioner Williams-Cox, seconded by Commissioner Porter. I'll weigh in. I think it's a great project and look forward to supporting the motion on the table. All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
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 All those opposed? Passes unanimously, 5-0. We're on item number 7.02. Mr. Cox.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. We've done our cycle for small and large events, and we wanted to give you an update on those and allow you all to approve the events. So Sheila will give you a presentation on
Ms. Williams.
Thank you very much. Most of the information as it relates to the events, or all of the information as it relates to the event, is already codified in you all's agenda item or packet. Like Stephen mentioned, the event grant cycle was held. We did have 3 of the committee members with the Greater Frenchtown Southside Citizens Advisory Committee to score those applications. The minimum score to be eligible for funding was 50 points of 110 points. The minimum amount of funding allowed for a not-for-profit to receive is $10,000 with a maximum of $25,000, with first-time events being eligible for $40,000. We did receive or score 7 applications, and all 7 of those applications did meet the minimum score threshold to be eligible for scoring. Now, one thing that did happen is the CRA board did approve earlier in the summer $100,000 for this category. What happened with the applications that were all eligible for scoring? Remember, for events, we actually have 2 categories of event grant funding for both of the districts, so a total of 4 opportunities for not-for-profits to apply under one category. For the small event grant category, I believe there were a few applications that were received. You all's approval under the small category for fiscal year 2023 was $35,000. With the 3 applications that were received under the small category, it left, so to speak, some residual funds, and the scorers decided to make the recommendation that the funds from, let's say, the small category be moved to the large category. And in doing that, they also, in the agenda item, the recommendation is that you go ahead and approve their request to transfer, so to speak, the leftover funds from the small category to the large category. So in your agenda item, staff has written the options as with that in mind, and we had it as, and this item has been reviewed by Resource Management and the City Attorney's Office. So we had it as option number 1 to accept the recommendation of the GFS CAC score evaluators for the fiscal year 2023, Greater Frenchtown Southside Large Event Grants, and the CRA Board approve increasing the funding by $20,000 for the program, and authorize the CRA Director to enter into a grant agreement with the approved organizations. We also had option 2 for you not to accept that with the score evaluators, or increasing the funding for the program by that $20,000 to approve all 7 of the applications in this category that met the minimum score threshold, and for you do not to allow the executive director to enter into the grant agreement with the approved organizations. And we had it as option number 3 of the board direction, and staff is recommending option number 1, that you accept the recommendation that you allow us to increase the funding by the $20,000 for the program, and that you do allow the executive director to enter into the grant agreement with the approved organizations. Now, when we get to the budget, we can, based off of your disposition on this matter, we can adjust the budget however you so choose. So with that, that will conclude my discussion as it relates to the Greater Frenchtown Southside fiscal year 2023 GFS Large Event Grant application.
Excellent, Ms. Williams. Do we have any public comment on this?
We do not.
All right, sounds good.
Move staff recommendation for option number 1.
Been properly moved by Commissioner Williams-Cox, seconded by
Second.
Commissioner Porter. Sounds great. Mr. Barber, I got a question for you. Can you help me out real quick? Thanks for being here. Y'all do a tremendous job, by the way, with Frenchtown Rising. Certainly do appreciate it. But I'm curious, because I think there's an issue we might have to deal with, not with your particular event. The barricades that we get for Frenchtown Rising, do y'all rent those? Do we put them up? Who puts them up for you?
City provides them.
They do?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Do we charge you for it?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Thank you. So I just want to get this on everybody's radar. This is something that I think we're going to have to deal with, and there might be some budget implications with it. And Mr. Barber's right. So with Frenchtown Rising, much like springtime, in the next event, next category was Springtime Tallahassee Parade, Veterans Day Parade. Traditionally in the past, the Sheriff's Department has been responsible bringing the work crews out first thing in the morning, and they set up the barricades. The Sheriff's Department notified the city that they are no longer providing that service. So then the question becomes, are we going to require the organizations that are putting on these events to volunteer manpower put it up? I don't know the liability questions with that, Lou. Or are we going to have them contract with the city and pay us, which then increases their cost? I just see this happening because if you recall at Springtime Tallahassee Parade last year, this became an issue like the week of who was putting up the barricades.
So veterans, was it springtime or Veterans Day?
I think
Veterans.
Both of them.
I think both.
I
So,
remember veterans.
you know, I don't think we have to tackle this issue right now, but I think it's something that as we have these large events that require the barricades, the logistics of it, and I had a conversation with Mr. Cox, and I encourage you to continue to talk with Ashley Edwards at Parks and Recreation. I just would hate for this to be a monkey wrench in anybody's festival 3 days beforehand because we haven't properly planned, especially if there's financial implications. That's all. Okay? Mayor Pro Tem, you have any comments or anything before we vote?
I didn't. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Okay. I think it's great. I'm going to support it. I appreciate Commissioner Williams-Cox making the motion, seconded by Commissioner Porter. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed?
Aye.
Passes unanimously, 5-0. Excuse me. We are on item number 8.01.
Mr. Chair, excuse me, this is the recommendation for the approval of fiscal year 23 downtown large event grants. Sheila will give you an update on that.
Thank you. Almost going to sound the same here. The downtown events, this is for the downtown large events. That cycle was held. 3 of the committee members with the Development Review Commission were the scores for the applications. The minimum score to be eligible for funding under the downtown large category was 70 points out of a possible 100. The minimum funding for the downtown large events is $10,000 with a maximum funding request of $25,000. We did receive 5 eligible applications under the downtown large category. The downtown evaluators did similar to the Greater Frenchtown South Side. Again, 4 pots of money, 2 sets, downtown large, downtown small, Greater Frenchtown South Side large, Greater Frenchtown South Side large. There were a couple of applications under the downtown small category. Again, the CRA board approved under the downtown small category $35,000, and under the large category, they approved $100,000 towards the earlier part of the spring of this year. There was, so to speak, residual money or leftover money from the small category. The downtown score evaluators did request that staff asked, or they made the recommendation that those funds be, so to speak, switched down to the large category. And with that, the downtown score evaluators recommended that the CRA board or the executive director approve funding the applicants who met the minimum score threshold. Let's remember that is 70 points, and that we would adjust the funding amounts in some cases, adjust the funding amounts based upon the applicant's score and ranking, and that the CRA board increased the funding for the downtown large program by $7,885, taking the prior approval from $100,000 to $107,885, and that the potential applicants who may receive the adjusted funding, by the way, some of the applicants that were fell under a certain score points, the approval was for funding amounts a little bit less than what they originally requested, but we did contact all of those applicants, and all of them were amenable to accepting a lower amount of funding, with staff working with them to adjust their budgets as applicable. So we did have some recommendations in here for you. This item was reviewed by Resource Management and the City Attorney's Office, and you had listed their options. 1, to accept the ERC score evaluators recommendation for fiscal year 2023 downtown large event grants, and the CRA board approved increasing the downtown large event grant funding category for fiscal year 2023 to an additional $7,885 for the program, and authorize the CRA executive director to enter into grant agreements with the approved organizations. And your option number 2 would be contrary to that, to say do not to all of that. And then there was option 3, other board direction. Staff is recommending that the board selects option 1, and that will conclude my comments on this item.
Excellent. Thank you, Ms. Williams. Any public comment on this item? Please come forward. Your name and address for the record, please, and don't forget to fill out the card.
My name is Stanley Sims. Commissioner Diane Cox, you are the Food Committee Commissioner. I'm usually one of the citizens that comes to this meeting. Can we put in a food request? We usually meet around lunchtime. It's 2 or 3 of us. It's not a big physical impact to the budget. So we would like for a food request to come from the dais as well, snacks. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other public comment?
No, sir.
All right. Commission discussion, direction, Commissioner Williams Cox.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Mr. Chair. My question goes with the 2 entities that were ineligible for funding, looking at their scoring. Evaluator B needs to be more generous than others. But I'm wondering if there is something that can be done to work with those applicants to help them improve their score going forward, if they were deficient of something, because it just, you go from 100 to 95 and then you drop way down to, something, to me, something there is either missing or something's not right, something. And I'm just gonna go ahead on and say it, that these look like they're small groups who may not have a staff who can put together a good-looking grant because they're busy doing the work. They don't have the money to fund the staff to do that. And so to make this more equitable, I would hope that we could work with these two organizations, one of them being John G. Riley, who I know how to complete grant applications because they get funding. And not sure why they rank so low, but trying to make sure we pull them up so that they can also qualify to get some of the bigger award prizes instead of consolation prize.
Yeah. And we actually do that. You're correct. With the lower scores, we do. With this year, we had a 2-month cycle The applicants all along that cycle could call staff, come in, we worked with them. We really didn't have anybody that asked any questions this time, and everybody, almost everyone turned their application in on the last day. Now, one thing I can specifically tell you for John G. Rowley Center and Museum, and it was one other one in another category, where typically their funding has been in the small category. So it was the submittal for the fiscal year 23 for John G. Rowley Center and Museum, they went into a different category than they customarily were in, and the application is a little bit different, and the information you turn in and how it's scored is a little bit different. But I didn't really have anybody to ask questions, but yes, ma'am, every time this is done, we do work with those not-for-profits that scored lower. Staff schedules meetings with them. We have all of the individual score sheets. We go over with them how they scored, why they scored that way, and we give them techniques to improve. We give them all of the score sheets. We schedule meetings with them if they're open to it, and we try to give them examples of higher scoring applications and how you go about doing it.
So to make sure that I understand, you're saying that the Black History Alliance and the John G. Riley, they actually applied in the small event category?
Usually, I'm going to say for John G. Rowley Center and Museum, the years prior, they were always in the small category. We do allow, of course, you can select whichever funding pot you want, but the times that they've customarily been approved, be it also the foundation, it's always been in the small category, which is the $5,000 or lower category.
And the evaluators, the evaluation process, is it different for the large events than the smaller events?
Yes, ma'am, it is a little bit, because the application is a little bit different, and we do, in the score threshold, I'm glad we're on that, is a little bit higher for the larger funding. For the small category downtown, the minimum points that you can get out of 100 is 50 to be eligible for scoring. But when you get to the large category, because we're talking about a larger amount of money, under the downtown category, maximum points is 70, but the minimum you have to score is 70.
So the evaluators for the large events were also the same evaluators for the smaller events?
Yes, for downtown, specific to the district, yes, ma'am.
Is there a possibility that there may have been some, I don't know the word, but some expectation from the evaluator that the smaller group should have also been able to score in the 70 and up range? Like did some of that come to the evaluation? I'm just trying to figure out why
Right.
we have such a drop. And I understand that we have large and small, but for those that didn't, the two that are listed here, did we say that they did get some funding
They
or did not?
Not for down.
they did not.
Did not.
Because they didn't, that's a scoring criteria, and how the approval was done. Minimum points to be eligible for scoring is 70 points.
Okay.
So, they didn't meet the minimum threshold to be eligible for funding under what's the approved guidelines and criteria.
But there was some residual that was then put back into the pot and spread amongst the folks who scored 70 or above.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Now, let me, how much, what was that residual?
$7,885, and the applicant that received that was the Cool Breeze Arts. Their original funding request was for $25,000.
So now they have,
$7,885.
I'm just trying to figure out, was there a way to possibly get some funding to the Black History Alliance and the John G. Riley group?
Not, you would have to amend the minimum threshold, the approved criteria and guidelines.
Because my concern, and I'll just, just for transparency, these are African-American events. And to say in a downtown, we want our downtown to be 18 hours or more, but we want everybody to want to come downtown, including African-Americans. And we went to Greenville. Remember we went to Greenville? Mm-hmm. And I had to ask them, where the black people? There were no black people downtown. And I don't want anybody to come to Tallahassee and ask that question. So we may not be able to do anything about it this time, but I'm hoping that these questions that I'm asking, we begin to resonate that we need to do something to be able to help African-American organizations, businesses, and whatever feel a part and be a part of what's going on downtown.
Now, we hold workshops as well. Every year with the events, we hold a workshop. We have PowerPoint that tells them what to do. We try to teach them what to do. I don't know, the only other thing maybe we could do is make it mandatory.
And it may not be that they're not doing what they need to do. We don't know what was on the mind of the evaluators. I'm just saying. We don't know if they have a bias. I'm not saying that they did, but they're looking at a large event, they're looking at a small event. You can't look at the small event like you looked at the large event. You gotta look at it differently. So anyway, I just wanted to just kind of raise that we're gonna need to do something a little bit different to help integrate downtown activities. Thank you.
Commissioner Porter? Commissioner Matlow?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just following up on that, I had two questions now. Is there Black representation on the scoring committee for downtown?
Oh,
Sorry.
Is there Black representation on the scoring committee for downtown?
Yeah. Board committee or
Not,
just-
not, the evaluators, no. So essentially, we have, evaluators come from the ERC, and they volunteered. So the three evaluators volunteered to.
Okay. And my second question, of all the event scorings, the three evaluators all seem to be within 10 points of each other, except for one, which is the John G. Riley. There's a 30-point evaluator C was 30 points under the other two evaluators. Is there a record of, do they fill out documents of what they're forming their opinion based on, and that's all could be presented as well?
No, sir.
Yes, sir.
They,
Yes, sir.
I'm
The
sorry.
scoring sheet, yes. We have each person's individual scoring sheet of how they scored each and every question.
Based
There-
on individual criteria?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
well, but it's based on numbers. It's not an explanation of why they scored the way, just the number.
Gotcha. Understood. Okay. Thank you.
Mayor Pro Tem, any comments?
Well, I do, Mr. Mayor, and this line of questioning kind of concerns me because we're questioning the integrity of these volunteer evaluators. This has never happened before. And so I would caution us, going down that road, that's a slippery slope. And to, start saying who needs to be on it and questioning why it can be a slippery slope, y'all. And I would just caution us about going down that road. But the other question that I had also, and it came up when we talked about the COCA funding, if the John G. Riley House is now a city entity and a part of our Parks and Recreation Department, does that make them still eligible for CRA funding?
It would seem to me to depend on what the event is, because even though they're a part of the City of Tallahassee, if they're doing something outside of the budget that the City of Tallahassee has for them, it's like any other entity that applies for a grant, I would think.
I don't know, Diane. I think it's a gray area. I do.
It might be, but
Yeah.
clear it up, but think about it.
I mean, if they're going to have an event like that, it should be built into their budget. I don't know that. I just
So when
have a question about that as well.
Yeah, when Star Metro applies for grants outside of,
But not from the CRA.
I understand, I'm just saying, when they.
We can get clarification.
Yeah, we can get the clarification, but I'm saying that we do need to get the clarification.
Yeah.
But
Yes.
if they were not eligible, then their application should not have been accepted. So they went through the process with the application that was evaluated and what have you. So at this point, they didn't get funding, so it's moot. And I want to say too, if I may, Mayor Pro Tem, I hear what you're saying. I'm not questioning the integrity of the evaluators. I am just trying to raise an issue that we have.
I understand.
We have 7 applicants here, and the ones who didn't get anything are the ones that are African-American related minority events. And I'm not saying anything about the evaluators other than there were 3 evaluators and one of them seemed to be more generous than the other. And if they're looking at large events and they're looking at small events and they're looking at the small events through the same lens that they're looking at the large events through, that might have been reason for it happening the way it happened. And absolutely, I'm not questioning the work of volunteers.
Okay. And Mr. Mayor, I get the other question that I had too. I noticed that the Cool Jazz Festival also came up in the discussion about the COCA funding. And this is just a question, but organizations are we looking at or accepting applications from organizations that are applying to different funding sources? Like, could Cool Jazz get money from the CRA as well as COCA? Is that, I mean, and it's just for clarification again.
That is, this is Sheila, Commissioner Richardson. The answer to that is yes. We actually do have a specific question in the application that asks the applicant, where is their funding coming from? What percentages from a government, so to speak? And they have to give a breakdown of that. In actuality, though, and I'm doing this from memory, the more public funding that you get, the lower your score is, I believe.
Okay.
So, we do allow them to get money from COCA and any other outside other entity, but I believe it kind of lowers the score because we're trying and we're hopeful that over time that these events can hopefully become more self-sufficient and not rely so much on public dollars.
Right. And I think if that is the, and I thank you for that clarification, Sheila, and if you could just make sure that that's the way that that's being handled in the scoring. Because I think that we should make sure that there are other organizations that have an opportunity to get some of this funding, and we not have 2 or 3 that are getting money from different pots of public funding, if you understand what I'm saying.
Yeah. Mr. Chair, on point.
Commissioner Williams-Cox.
I know that we have some entities where it is clear and is written in policy that they cannot double dip. But in this case, I don't think that is the case because to put on these public events is getting more and more expensive. And so people are trying to find the funding where they can. And unless we put it in the application explicitly that you cannot receive multiple public funding sources, then I think we're where we are to try to make sure that we put these events together using public dollars.
Now, if I may interject one more time, there's one thing that we are leaving out. We have been doing this program for some years, and we are aware of input from the community, the not-for-profits, and things that staff has seen. As this board knows, we are, as a CRA, working to do an overhaul or updating a lot of our programs. And on the list of updates and overhaul is the event grant program, and for both districts, for both types of funding. So we're hoping that, correct, Mr. Cox?
Yes.
In fiscal year 2024, you'll see somewhat of a different product. And we will be sure that we take all of these things, concerns, into consideration in doing whatever the overhauls, updates need to be to make it better.
Okay, that's good.
More improved.
All right, that's all I had, Mr. Mayor. Thank you so much.
All right, motion on the table by Commissioner Williams-Cox for approval, seconded by Commissioner Porter. All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Passes unanimously, 5-0. We are on item number 9.01, Mr. Cox. Commissioner Williams-Cox, I'm going to pass the gavel for 2 seconds, okay?
Right.
Thank you.
Would you like me?
Yeah, go for it. I don't think I have to see.
Okay. All right, thank you. So I just want to give you all a brief presentation on the tourism development tax guidelines. So in 2018, we had the first iteration of this. There were several awards of funding. At that time, it was $3 million. One of those recipients, TLH Arts, earlier this year, they rescinded those funds. They were not able to complete their project. They were awarded $1.8 million. So with those funds back, the CRA board decided to create a new application cycle. They've tasked the CRA to provide guidelines. So we updated the guidelines, made a few changes to those guidelines. That 1.8 with interest is now $2 million. So this is guidelines for the application cycle, and the award amount is $2 million. So just a little background. Under Florida Statute 125, these funds are meant to be used to attract tourism. And there's a combination of Florida Statute 125 and then interlocal agreement between the county and the city, which requires that it be located in the within the CRA district, and it must be a facility that is publicly owned or operated or by a 501c3. So there are some requirements in regards to who can apply. All of this information will be on available on our website once approved by you all. Under the interlocal agreement, there are what the expenses, what the programs can be: cultural, visual arts, performing arts, things of that nature. And again, it must be within the district.
Either of the districts.
Either district, yes, ma'am. Sorry to wanted to clarify. Excuse me. So we're going to have two phases, if you will. The first phase is going to be staff evaluating the applications, make sure they're eligible, make sure that they fall within a district, things like that. And then the next phase is when it goes to the Arts and Cultural Review Committee. And as you see on the screen, these are the proposed entities that will have a representative on those on that committee. There'll be two members of our citizen advisory groups, one from downtown and one from Greater Frenchtown South Side, a member from the Tourism Development Council, a member from Knights Creative Community Initiative, and a member from Downtown Improvement Authority. We anticipate to have COCA as a subject matter expert. They will help us during phase one to evaluate the eligibility. And I will show you in a second why their knowledge and expertise is so important to this process. All right, so for our funding schedule, we anticipate to open up if approved today, the applications will be open, the cycle will be open October 1st. It'll be a 2-month window to apply. We're going to have a two workshops, excuse me. You have to attend one of them, so they are mandatory. Anybody eligible, intending to apply must attend one of these two events. And so one will be on October 3rd, the other will be on October 10th. And the idea is that you come, here, you can answer any questions that you may have. We'll answer them, and you are ready to apply. The deadline is November 30th. And again, we'll take some time to evaluate them, staff-wise as well as COCA, and then we'll notify everybody December 30th, at least by December 30th, who has made it to that next phase. At the next phase, we don't have dates yet, but we anticipate January, the month of January will be a busy one. If there's any presentations, they'll be early part of January, and that'll allow for the evaluators to score and give us their feedback. And then our goal is to be back in front of you at our February CRA meeting to present the scores and the rankings, and then based on that, we'll go to the County Commission, City Commission. We're anticipating April, but we might be able to do it March. It just depends on time frame. And then by April, we will notify whoever has received the funds. The idea is that one individual can receive all the dollars, or There could be multiple recipients, so it's an either or. It just depends on the project that comes to us. Based on the scoring criteria, it's out of 100 points. We have 6 categories, if you will, as far as the scoring. 15 points for compliance to the cultural plan for funding and facilities, 15 points for compliance of the cultural plan for economic development, cultural impact, 20 points, 20 points for cost and feasibility, 15 points for sustainability, and 15 points for project readiness. And again, if you have any questions, we can discuss it, but essentially, we do recommend that you approve these guidelines and frameworks, and we will get started with the advertising and application, all that kind of stuff, if approved. That's all I have for you all. You can.
Excellent. Do we have any public comment on this item?
We do have one public speaker online, is that correct, Suzanne? Do we have the? We thought we were going to have a public
Okay.
speaker that.
We don't have anybody online. Okay, let's open it up. Commissioner Porter, then Commissioner Williams-Cox.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. First off, I want to say, thank you to staff. I feel like this has been a process from before I was even here on the city. I'm glad we've reached this point. I hope that we can move forward. I feel like certainly what I wanted has been reflected in this, meaning that I didn't want the funds to be diluted such that we had, $10,000 grants. So I think having the minimum be $500,000, but the availability of up to $2 million, I feel comfortable with that. And I think that will hopefully encourage the kind of applications that will create a major impact on our community as the funds were intended to provide. I have a few questions. One, just with the timeline, it's my understanding still that pending our action, this still has to be approved by the county and then the city. Is that correct or no? Mr. Norvell, you're saying no? I just want clarification.
So, Commissioner, under the interlocal agreement, the CRA administers these funds. The ultimate awards of the grants will have to be approved by the city and the county, but this framework does not have to go to the city and county for their approval. If you approve this today, this program will go forward.
Okay, thank you, thank you. And then my final question is for the representatives for the scoring committee. I really like the diversity of the groups that are represented, and this is definitely not a kind of like a breaking point for me in any way, but do we have any idea about how they will select those representatives from their respective groups?
No,
They will
ma'am.
decide that among themselves?
Yeah, they'll decide amongst themselves. I think some of it is availability, who's interested, that kind of thing. But we didn't give any criteria. We just asked them if there was representative that was interested.
Okay, thank you. Well, I'm ready to make a motion. I know there's other comments, but whenever the time is appropriate, I would
Go ahead and make your motion, Commissioner.
move that we accept staff recommendation to move forward with the application process.
Commissioner Porter moves staff recommendation. Is there a second to the motion?
I'll second the
Seconded by
motion.
Commissioner Williams-Cox. You have the floor.
Thank you. I wanted to say also, thank you all for putting together a comprehensive, very clear step by step as to what will happen. I'm ready for these dollars to get on the street, as y'all know, to be used. They've been sitting around. They've acquired interest. It's been around so long, and that's not a bad thing. But we do need to get these things moving in our community and making them do what they're supposed to do. One question I will add on the deadline, 4 p.m. on whatever that date was, I can't remember.
November 30th.
30th.
I think it's going to be important that you indicate that either it needs to be in your office or postmarked, because we deal with that, with something being postmarked by a certain time. But if you want it to be in the office, we need to say in the office by 4 p.m. on that day.
We're not doing a paper mail-in drop-off process. This is this year going to be a completely electronic process.
Very
that
good.
They will be emailing their applications in. So with receipt of it coming in under electronically email, it'll be date stamped.
Very
And
good.
at a point, we're going to just cut that specific email off for TDT funding so that nothing can come in or be received after that date and specific time.
Okay. And I got a comment from someone saying that they thought this was moving too fast, and I just have to chuckle because if this is moving fast, I don't know what we're doing. The Earth is orbiting faster than this process has worked, but we're now that we have some dates, we know that by next April, the spring of the year, this money should be on the street. So thank you all. Thank you, Mr. Cox and your staff for doing this and making it so clear that an eighth grader can understand it. Thank you.
Commissioner Porter.
Thank you. And I think there may have been, we all, I think, received the same communication from that resident who was concerned. I think that there was maybe some misunderstanding about whether October 1 was the due date or not. And so I heard back from him that he was comfortable with the November 30th deadline.
No further conversation. Commissioner Matlow.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Well, this is a great process. I pray that it goes smoothly and it gets through all the boards as it should. I do have one request for a change to consider. The application deadline is November 30th, but the mandatory workshop is October 10th. So there's about 50 days. If you find out about this October 11th, even though you can apply till November 30th, you can't attend another workshop. Essentially, if you don't know you're going to apply by October 10th, you'd be shut out of the process. So I would request that we look at the second workshop date, pushing it back later, maybe towards the beginning of November or whatever's appropriate, just so we don't have people, we release this, they find out about it mid-October, find out they missed all the workshop deadlines.
Do you all have a particular time frame that works?
No, just do it.
Personally, I don't have a problem with the workshops being there, because that gives them the opportunity now to go back and do the crunch work to get it where and how it needs to go. But I don't, it's not a deal breaker for me. But I think if you know you're going to apply, and there are 2 workshops and they've been advertised, you'll get there. You'll get there. But I'm fine with it.
Commissioner Porter.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a good point. I'm wondering if what Mr. Cox thinks about, or what Commissioner Mallow thinks about just adding an additional workshop instead of pushing the other later, if we just make it a 3rd workshop that's a week or 2 weeks later. Would that be too burdensome? Okay.
Either way works.
Okay, then I can
Make it happen.
Yeah, you're discussing.
amend my
Make it
motion, to just include an additional workshop at least a week after the October 10th workshop.
All right, there's a motion on the table. Any further comment? Mayor Pro Tem, you want to weigh in?
I'm good, Mr.
All right, all
Mayor.
those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those
Aye.
opposed? Passes unanimously 5-0. All right, do we have any other business to come before us?
Oh, no, that's.
Nope, we got a public hearing in an hour.
No other business, sir. I did want to make a brief announcement. We do have a new staff member, Elise Fisher. I did want to formally introduce her to you all. She's going to be our program planner. She's worked with the city, I think 3 years already within the growth management. We had to, go ahead and snatch her
Steal
from
somebody,
there.
you had to steal somebody?
No, we had to poach her. But we are very happy with our new addition, and just wanted to welcome her to the team. And if you have any questions for her, she'll be around. So
Ms. Fisher, welcome. Thanks for joining the team. Look forward to working with you.
that's all I have.
Mr. Chair, I have one question,
Sure.
because I know I see some people here that may be here regarding the budget. That's going to happen at 5. So if there's any, I would ask if there's any discussion that needs to take place regarding the budget to get ready for it, that if Mr. Cox and you and your staff would be available for anyone in the audience who may have some questions or concerns.
Sounds great. Yeah, we got an hour.
Mr.
Colleague,
Mayor.
sure, Mayor Pro Tem.
Yeah, just very quickly, I did get a call from Miss Williams, Brenda Williams with the Housing Authority. And they have some concerns with the budget in terms of what we agreed to assist them with, the gap funding that we had discussed. And so I won't be able to be on the part of the budget hearing. Our event started 4:30. But I would hope that there would be some discussion about that issue. That's a very important issue for us, affordable housing in our community. And I would hope that we would continue to show our support for their efforts in making that happen. So I hope that's part of the discussion when you all start deliberating on the budget for next fiscal year.
Excellent.
Mr. Wanda is here.
Okay.
Mr. Mayor,
Sure, Commissioner Porter.
I'm very eager to take a break, but I was wondering, I saw a signal from an audience member who, I'm wondering if
We're getting there.
we should, if we're going to take any public comment on non-agenda items that are not related to the budget.
Haven't gotten there yet.
Okay,
We'll do
okay,
that.
thank you.
Absolutely. All right. Any other announcements prior to the budget workshop? Okay. So since we have time, we'll do public comment on non-agenda items so that you don't have to wait till after the budget workshop as well, but we'll do it as well at the end of the budget workshop. We got time. Anybody want to speak on a non-agenda item? Name and address.
Okay, Mr. Mayor, I just wanted to let you know that I'm leaving the meeting.
Okay, thank you. Thank you.
safe, Curtis.
Safe
Okay.
travels.
Be
Thank
safe,
you.
Curtis. See you later.
Madam
Stay-
Clerk,
Thank
we'll
you
get
all.
those public speakers in just a second, okay? Your name and address for the record, please.
My name is Stanley Sims. I'm at 1320 Avondale Way. This is a non-agenda item, but I come because I feel like this is a great environment for me to get clarity in order so that I can make very good use of this process. Currently, I am talking with the downtown improvement authorities with about integrating pop-up shops down in the downtown area. We've identified some parking spaces that the City of Tallahassee has given us, really 4. But here's my question. And I want to ask this so nicely, so it's going to be a challenge with less sarcasm. How can I get the support like other organizations get so that my proposal won't be looking like crap? And I can get money like everybody else get money. Because here's the challenges that I have that everyone else don't have. I have a no trespassing warrant against me. When I email, I don't get the answers back to what I need. I can't come into the city hall unless it's a public notice building. But they say now I'm not prohibited from doing business, even though none of the city employees return any of my calls. And then I look where with all of those barriers, I still send proposals in. They may not be the best, but they sometimes have a letter of support from Kenneth Barber. But I still can't get any support. And then when they get turned down, I don't get a commissioner on the dais saying, why you did not give them any money. I just asked today. I've seen citizens every day come up and say, hey, I volunteer my time to come to these meetings. Can I get a snack? And every time, commissioner comes up and say, hey, get those people some snacks. Well, I'm the only one that comes to the Downtown Improvement Authority, and it ain't that sexy, but I like going to these meetings. Can I get a snack? But they say that budget doesn't support a snack. That's why I feel blackballed. Do I have to go out to Plantation Road
to the Black Knight meeting and get some macaroni and cheese and chicken for a snack? They had snacks at that meeting.
Mr. Sims, if you would, go ahead and start concluding your comments.
We're at 3 minutes. Thank you, Mr. Sims.
Okay, I'll conclude my comments.
Please.
My comments is, can a brother get some snacks?
Thank you. Our next speaker, please.
Our next speaker I have as Greta Brown. Name and address for the record, please, and you'll have 3 minutes. The light on the dais will
Great.
go from
Thank you for
green to
joining.
yellow to red.
Your name and address for the record, please.
My name is Greta Brown at 527 West Brevard Street. Up here, I have a presentation. I want to update everyone on the Officer in Residence program. It's something that we started working on prior to COVID back in January, February of 2020. We made talks with TPD. Can you go to the next slide for me? Thank you. So we had initial meetings on January 30th, 2020. The CRA board directed CRA staff to work with Mount Olive and TPD and the Housing Division to develop resident officer program agenda. And on February 17, 2020, we had an initial meeting with TPD. TPD assigned the Deputy Chief Tanya Smith to develop officer selection criteria for an ideal officer for the program. So also currently right now we are building a house on Delaware Street that we're hoping to use for this officer in residence program. Here's a picture of it right up here for you. It is a 3-bedroom, 2.5-bath home with an option for a bonus room, and it is 2,351 square feet. Could you go to the next slide, please? So COVID happened, everything stopped, came to a halt, but now we're back getting into the swing of things. And so on the 17th, down the bottom, we met with CRA Director, Mr. Cox, and had discussion about the program overview, discussion about the house. And this is a picture of where we are with the house. It's currently still being built. On the 22nd, we met with TPD, Deputy Chief Tanya Smith, and discussed the program overview and potential candidates. And on September 6th, we met with Assistant Sheriff Agatha Gilmore and discussed the program overview with her as well. And so we just wanted to make sure that you guys know this is on your radar because we are working on it, and we will be coming back to just discuss it further with you all. Could you go to the next slide for me? And this is what the house will look like. This is the floor plan. It may be kind of hard to see. I'm not sure how well you can see it, but again, it's a beautiful home. We are really excited to hopefully be able to work with the CRA on getting an officer in there and as well with local law enforcement. So.
Great. Thank you. Great presentation.
Thank you.
Our next speaker, please.
Looks like we have one additional speaker. If you would just come to the podium, ma'am.
All right.
Name and address for the record.
I would plan to wait till the public hearing on the budget. If it's appropriate now, we can talk about.
Please, go ahead.
Orange Avenue redevelopment phase 2. We've met with most of you over the last couple of months, with the exception of Commissioner Matlow. We have to reschedule. We have had another gap in our financing. We applied for funding from Florida Housing back in 2020. We received 9% tax credits. We're now at a point where we're trying to close. We closed on phase 1 last week. Florida Housing recognizes that, everybody's having problems in gap financing and came up with a CHIRP program. And the CHIRP program, we applied for the maximum credits, is $499,000, which would net us about $4 million additional dollars. The construction cost from the time of application to now has gone up about $12 million. We've done some value engineering. We've looked at reducing the number of units, reduces the amount of money you borrow. So you ended up netting nothing. So it was in the best interest of the project to create more affordable housing to keep the units that we had. We utilizing the fair market rents. We're deferring the maximum amount of developer fee, which is 50%. We now to a gap of about $4 million. We met with city and county staff and CRA staff, trying to get some synergy going because Florida Housing is looking for us to get commitment letters for the gap financing so that they can then size up how much of the CHIRP money we can get to help fill that gap. And we have a deadline of the 16th, which is next week, to get our letters in order to make the October Florida Housing Board meeting, so that we're trying to close in January because our plans are already into the city for review, and we are shovel-ready. So with that, the city and the county staff and Seltzer Management, which is underwriting the tax credits for us, are looking at, what we can get from all pots of money to try and fill the gap, because we can't close with a gap. We can't even go in underwriting with a gap. The Housing Authority has spent almost $3 million in demolition and relocation. We spent probably another $500,000 in pre-development cost. And so we are not in the budget, but, we're a shovel-ready project. We don't need the money up front. We just need a letter of, that some money will come to help fill this gap. And at some point, between the time we close, which isn't until 2023, and the time we finish construction, which will probably be another 18 months later, is when we get that money in. So we're basically dialing for dollars, and I'm here to ask for your support. Perhaps there's some projects on the table that have had funding for several years that can be shifted to somewhere else, but
I didn't get your name.
it's Tawana Thompson, and I'm going to hand her this piece of paper so you have it.
Thanks, Ms. Thompson. We appreciate it. Is Ms. Williams going to be joining us at 5 o'clock for the budget?
Ms. Williams is traveling, and our
Okay.
developer partner is ill, but I'll be here.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank you.
And Mr. Chair, I did also have a conversation with Ms. Williams, and I do remember when they were here before, we talked about this process and what they needed. They weren't asking for money at that time. She's not asking for money today. They need a letter of commitment so that they are able to move forward. And I will tell you that Orange Avenue Apartments is my neighborhood, and I want to see dirt turned. I want to see buildings built. I don't want another hole left in somewhere like we got downtown already. So I'm hoping that we'll be able to do what we can to make sure that this project moves and continues as we continue to move our city forward together.
$12 million is a huge deficit from the time that they announced the project to,
But they're down to 4.
but they're down to 4 million now.
4,060,000, I think.
4 million is the gap, is what I was told today.
Interesting. Okay. And the construction company on record is
Well, I don't think. you
for
have-
Orange Avenue? Who's the
I
construction
think
company on
phase one,
record?
You have,
Mad Dog. Okay. All right. Well, we'll have a great conversation at 5 o'clock. Wonderful. Any other public comment? Seeing none, well, we are recessed for 45 minutes. Call the the public hearing for the CRA board meeting to order. In particular, we have the adoption of the proposed fiscal year 2023 CRA operating and capital budget. I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Cox to walk us through.
thank you, Mr. Chair. I would like to have Chair Curtis give a presentation on the proposed budget for you all to hopefully adopt today.
Good afternoon,
Curtis, thank you.
Mr. Chair. Thank you. Good afternoon, CRA board members, Mr. Chair. Agenda item 10.01 is the adoption of the proposed fiscal year 2023 CRA operating and capital budget. The proposed fiscal year 2023 budget in this agenda item is very similar to the budget you reviewed on June 23rd of this year, with the exception of 2 line items. These line items were presented earlier this afternoon and explained. The items were agenda item 7.02, which was an increase for the Greater Frenchtown Southside District Large Event Program from $100,000 to $120,000. And the second item was for the downtown district to increase the funding for the downtown large event grant program from $100,000 to $107,885 on agenda item 8.01. You approve these items, and these increases are reflected in the proposed budget. We'll begin the budget presentation with the Greater Frenchtown Southside District. Starting with the Greater Frenchtown Southside revenues and reserves, the total revenues for fiscal year 2023 are based on the preliminary tax values received from the Leon County Property Appraiser's Office. They are $4.9 million. The main source of revenue for the Greater Frenchtown Southside District is from the tax increment received from the city and the county. The estimated tax increment for fiscal year 23 is 14% higher than the final tax increment from this year. Other sources of revenue include metered and leased parking from the deck and block parking garages, loan interest, prior year funds, and reserves. The district expenses are estimated at $4.3 million. This includes personnel and operating expenses of $552,000. As in prior years, the costs for personnel and operating expenses are split between the two districts. That split is based on the amount of tax increment each district receives for the fiscal year. For fiscal year 2023, the split would be 61% for the Greater Frenchtown Southside District and 39% for the Downtown District. Attachment 5 in your agenda item provides you with a breakdown of these expenses. Also included in the contractual commitments totaling $743,911. These commitments are the SOMA walls, JVP lofts, Early's kitchen expansion, and the block and deck parking garage expenses. The non-contractual commitments are the source of program funding for such programs as our promotional and special event and large event grant programs, our business facility improvement program, our medium and large redevelopment program, our neighborhood partnership program, and the heirs property program. In addition to the program funding, these commitments also fund our neighborhood first plans, making it the largest expense line item with over $3 million. So to summarize the Greater Frenchtown Southside proposed budget for fiscal year 2023, revenues are at $4.9 million, with personnel and operating expenses of $552,000, contractual commitments of $744,000, non-contractual commitments of over $3 million, leaving a fund balance estimated at $617,000 for future programs and projects. Next, we'll discuss the downtown budget. The downtown district revenues, as you can see, in reserves for fiscal year 23 are estimated at $5.7 million, with the majority coming from our tax increment estimated at over $3 million. Other sources of revenue include parking lot lease payments from the Aloft Hotel, parking revenue from Cascades Parking Garage, and prior year funds and reserves. The downtown district expenses include personnel and operating expenses of nearly $392,000. The district covers 39% of the personnel and operating expenses. The personnel and operating expenses for both districts total $944,000, which represents 12.6% of the 2023 tax increment to be collected. Also included in the downtown expenses are contractual commitments totaling over $1.4 million. These commitments include the Gateway Construction Grant Payment, Cascades Redevelopment Project Reimbursement, Cascades Parking Garage Debt Service, and Cascades Parking Garage Operating Expenses. Non-contractual commitments represents programs similar to the Greater Frenchtown Southside District. These are promotional and special event, the large event grant programs, the downtown ground floor retail and entertainment facade grant program. Also included in these commitments are small capital expenses for small infrastructure projects and the downtown CRA plan update, where staff is looking at hiring a consultant to aid in updating the downtown redevelopment plan and creating a strategic plan for the district. The total of these commitments are estimated at $600,000. For the downtown district, total expenses for fiscal year 2023 are estimated at $2.4 million. Summarizing the downtown district fiscal year 2023 budget with revenues of $5.7 million, personnel and operating expenses at $392,000, contractual commitments of $1.4 million, and non-contractual commitments of $600,000, leaving a fund balance of $3.3 million for future programs and projects. Attachment 6 in your agenda item is the budget resolution outlining a balanced budget for both Greater Frenchtown Southside District and the Downtown District. The recommendation for the fiscal year 2023 proposed CRA budget for operating and capital budget is to adopt by resolution the fiscal 2023 CRA operating and capital budget as described in this agenda item with the adjustments as stated, and authorize the CRA chair and CRA executive director to commit the funds, approve expenditures consistent with the budget as proposed in this agenda item with established program guidelines. This concludes my budget presentation, and I'm here to answer any questions you may have.
That was a great presentation. Thank you. Before we get into public comment, do we have any questions of clarification on the budget? All right, let's go to public comment. Do we have any public speakers on the proposed budget?
None that I have at this time.
Okay. Wow. Here we go.
All right.
Commissioner Williams-Cox.
Let me just go ahead and kick this off. As I mentioned, as we were going into break, I know that currently in the budget, we have not identified a source for assisting the Orange Avenue apartments. But when they were here with us before, they shared with us, and Ms. Thompson has told us today, they're not asking for money today. They're asking for a commitment. The money will be needed by 2025. And Mr. Cox, I'm going to ask you that agreeing to do this letter of commitment today and having the funds available by 2025, what would be the best mode of operation to make that happen?
Are we trying to do all 4 million? Or
2 million.
2 million? We don't have to change anything as far as the budget's concerned today, but the letter of commitment would be the first thing for whatever the Housing Authority needs. But then we would need to decide if we're taking some money from the 23 budget and 24 budget, or just doing 24 budget. My recommendation, if we are looking to do 2 million, is to take some from both years instead of depleting one year or the other. We have an idea of what 24 budget may look like, but we don't know if there's any other projects or programs that we want to try to implement. So without knowing what those other ones are, just what we have today, it is possible to get 2 million between the 2 years. It is possible.
Okay.
But I mean, that does mean that we are deferring, money from other things. I mean, It's not like it's uncommitted. It's
right.
We just have to defer from something else.
Right. And I appreciate that. I appreciate your making that real clear. And to my colleagues, we were faced with something very similar last night. It wasn't $1 million, it wasn't $2 million, it was $300,000. But prior to that, it was $4 million that we needed to find to balance the budget. And with the help of staff, we were able to do that. I'm believing that with the help of staff, we can do that here. We're talking about $1 million maybe for the next 2 years, just to make sure we have available, so that in 2025 we're able to provide what we say we would provide. A letter of commitment today says that by 2025 we'll have $2 million, and I think we can do that. I think we really can with good planning. There may be some overage in some years that we may be able to squirrel away and be good stewards of the dollars. to make that happen. There may be some revenues that we haven't realized yet that will come in those other years. What I don't want to have happen is that we have projects that are not getting completed because we have a gap in funding, and we do have a potential funding source. We need housing in our community. We know that. We need affordable housing in our community. This is an affordable housing project. And many times when folks come to us, come to the CRA, they're needing money right now. They're needing that money today. That's not the case here. These folks have been planning. They came to us last meeting and shared with us what was needed. They said then a letter of commitment was needed. They said that they wouldn't need the money until 2025. I don't know what else we could expect of them to do. They've asked, they've met with us, those they've been able to meet with, to let us understand what this situation is. And I don't know how many of you ride by there every day. I ride by there every day. That's my neighborhood. That's near where I live. And I know that people have been moved to create this opportunity. They're going to have the opportunity to come back, but we got to have something for them to come back to. And so I think that we're doing our part to help with this. It was not their fault that there was a gap in funding. Costs went up. Joining the county, because I'm sure the county is going to join us in this effort. I think that we should provide that letter of commitment and identify over the next 2 years where those dollars can come from to make sure that we're able and we're ready in 2025 to provide that, what we say we would provide in that letter of commitment. So I'm asking, you heard the heard Commissioner Richardson state what his thoughts were. I think if we're very serious about affordable housing, here is an opportunity for us to continue to show that we are wanting to move our city in the right direction and deal with our affordable housing crisis. So I would, if it's proper, would make a motion that we provide that letter of commitment and identify the funding sources for those dollars over the next 2 years to support it by 2025 to be able to provide them with the money, the $2 million.
All right, there's a motion on the table. Is there a second?
I'll second it for discussion.
Seconded for discussion. Commissioner Matlow.
I would just like more information. You're proposing a $2 million CRA expense. Has the county committed? Tawana, you mentioned you would need a $4 million commitment by next week.
Yes. We're trying to get into the Florida Housing CHIRP underwriting process. They'll generate $499,000 worth of credits, which would cover our initial gap of $10 million, or cut it by $4 million and some change, which leaves us with the $4,060,000 left. And if not, then we'd have to wait until the board meets in November, which means it pushes back closing, because we have to be fully funded and have all these letters of commitment into them so that they can make sure that what we applied for, which was the maximum of CHIRP money, is enough to do the project, and we can be invited to underwriting and close in January, which is what we're trying to do because we're already in permitting on phase 2. And the city, we met with the city and the county staff, and their response to us was, we have Seltzer Management looking at the dollars to make sure all the numbers add up. And they said, well, after the CRA, we'll try and make up the difference of what the CRA doesn't fund.
So the city or the county haven't made a commitment, or
No.
they're not scheduled to make? Even if we made a commitment today to meet your deadline by next week,
Right.
how is that possible?
It's a struggle. So we'll go back to the staff and say, okay, we got this from the CRA. Can you all make a commitment based on something that they either have in their budget or something? If they can make a commitment to go on a commission agenda, if it requires commission approval, if it's something they can do themselves. like I said, we've been doing this back and forth since June. So we'll just leave this meeting and get on the phone with folks and find out what the process is and what they can do and where they are, because they should be working on allocating funds for something, but they were waiting to see what we'd get from the CRA.
Okay. And
On point to what Commissioner Matlow was saying, that's a good point. I mean, we just had a city commission meeting last night,
I know.
and we missed the boat. I mean, we could have had this conversation last night at the city, and the county, when is their first meeting?
Next week.
Next
Right.
week. So, you know, the largest budget of the local governments, we missed the boat last night, when we could have had this discussion.
Yeah.
But on point, again, they came to the CRA in June.
Right.
They didn't come to the city. They came to the CRA
Right,
in June.
right.
We're in September. So, no, I don't think we can penalize them for not coming to the city because they came to the CRA, and there was no indication from the CRA that where we were going. You know, but I think we've all said, and I know I have to go back, I think I spoke in support of it, but I had this other little project that I've been working on, so I kind of lost sight of it. But here we are, and we can't go back and redo last night, but we do have an opportunity to make a commitment today so that the county, when they meet next week, will see that we have made a commitment to do this. And I personally have spoken with one of the chairman of the county commission, and basically we've discussed that we've got to do something because we cannot leave that project over there looking like it's looking now. So at this point, everybody's got to dig deep and kick in. In my opinion, we would not allow this to exist anywhere else unfinished.
Commissioner Matlow, you still have the floor, and then Commissioner Porter.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So I guess a follow-up question was, have any other private sources, have the developers looked for any other private funding since we first met on this?
Well, interest rates went up, so what we can borrow has been kind of reduced because interest rates went up 0.75%. And so you have a limit as to what you can borrow for the project and your debt coverage service. So I think we're borrowing the max. We've put that in the budget. We're deferring the maximum of developer fee, which is 50%. Put that in the budget. We've done some value engineering to cut costs. And so we've pretty much done all we can do. The Housing Authority will be loaning some more money into the project, but we're pretty much tapped out after this. So you can't really borrow a whole lot more money.
If the CRA approves this today and the county rejects it next week, what will happen then?
We're gonna have a good long delay while we try and either wait on prices to come down or dial for some more dollars. I don't know.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I honestly don't know.
I got you. Thank you. So I have a few concerns about this. One, I expressed concerns last time because I think we were discussing $4 million at that time, and we have reduced that ask down to $2 million, which is still a significant portion of this CRA's budget. But I've also been very concerned with the conversations around this specific project and Mad Dog as the developer. I'm very concerned that,
I'm sorry, Commissioner
Mad Dog isn't the developer.
or as the builder,
Well, they were the low bid.
they were the bid.
Right.
Right.
Low bid.
Yeah.
Otherwise, it would be more.
Right.
Absolutely no. My issue is, Mr. Mayor, Mad Dog is your political opponent's family. And when we're making decisions, it just seems very intentional that we continue to talk about Mad Dog when Mad Dog's not before us today,
Right.
asking for funding at all. They just happen to be the company that can do this cheaply. And in a city where we talk about political retribution, political intimidation, it's made me very uncomfortable throughout the process of this decision that that's even a factor in the conversation. So with that being said, I'll continue to second the motion. Thank you.
You what? What did you say?
I'll continue to second the motion.
What consideration is Mad Dog, besides the fact that they're the developer of record?
The
The contractor.
Yeah, the contractor. It doesn't play into any decision.
Well, I'm just making clear that it should not, because this is the second time we've discussed this item. This is the second time aggressively Mad Dog has been brought up.
Well, they are the construction company of record, right? Yeah, okay.
Okay,
It's not a part of my decision-making. Is it a part of yours?
it is not.
Okay. Commissioner Porter, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So if we make this recommendation today, you mentioned the Florida Housing.
Money.
Okay, and so the deadline is the end of next week?
It's the end of next week. However, maybe they'll take it the following week or toward the end of the month, we'll go back to them and talk to them and say, look, we've got one more letter coming. We're going to the board of the city or the county, something.
Okay.
And we still might squeak in to make the deadline for their October board meeting.
Okay, that answers some of my question, was whether, how much flexibility there was with that, or when might be the next opportunity. I'm, obviously, and I met with you as well, this is a terribly frustrating position to be put in for everyone.
It is.
And I agree that if the outcome here is that, the project just fall through, I don't think that's acceptable. I think we all agree with that. In our conversations, remind me, there was also feedback about wanting there to only be one underwriter, and that was cheaper for the development overall.
Yeah.
Is that still a priority or a consideration?
No, what we were talking about was when what we closed last week, there were 7 layers of funding.
Right.
And so every lender had their own attorneys.
Right.
And so you had all these people on call. And then with those multiple closings, it is frustrating. Paperwork, attorneys reviewing, and it just took a long time for everybody to agree. And so if we have, right now, you got a lender, you got the equity investor, you got the city, the CRA, the housing authority, and then the county. So it's fewer entities involved in a loan transaction. And so the suggestion was that everybody puts the money into the CRA to come back, which I don't think is probably a good idea, because they're different pots of money. You have to keep the funding separate.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure that wasn't a deal breaker as
No.
far as I didn't, okay.
No.
So is all of this hanging on, if we move forward today, whether or not the county is supportive? As far as in these time parameters, what we're discussing, that's what we're looking at?
Yeah, I think they are.
I don't know if I have any more questions. I definitely
I'm available.
feel, I am a little confused, and this reflects not at all on the Housing Authority, why there wasn't, it seems like there was a breakdown in communication somewhere between the CRA and the city perhaps in having these discussions about, whether we should have considered this last night, even though last night we were talking about a certain fiscal year budget and not future year budgets. So I don't know exactly where that leaves us. In the absence of an alternative suggestion, I'm inclined to support a $2 million commitment today, because I do believe we have to do something, but I am worried about about planning ahead and what that means, and what action, if any, the city could could take in the meantime, depending on the outcome that we can expect from the county, which we can't predict or guarantee until next, what is it, Tuesday? The 13th? Thank you.
Okay. So I have an idea of how to bring this in for a landing, but first let me just say, yes, I am very frustrated and quite honestly disappointed with the Housing Authority. I wish Ms. Williams could be here. I wish she could at least call in. This is a big decision. It's $4 million, and it's very important. How much is the overall cost of Phase 2?
$37 million.
The overall cost of Phase 2, including the $12 million increase?
No, including the $12 million increase, the overall cost is $39 million. But remember, the church money is going to take some of that, and we've got 9% credits this time as opposed to 4% from the last time.
How much was the cost of Phase 2 before we knew it was going to be $12 million more? Just outright.
Outright, when we submitted our application, it was 35. No. Let me flip through the application. Because the application was done in 2022. No, 2020. It was 33,169,000, and now the cost is 45,069,190. Variance is 11,899,611.
Got it. Okay, so I do call into question, actually, the $12 million change-up. I mean, that's significant. That's almost 1/3 of the entire project. I'm not aware of any other construction project that's taken place in Leon County, whether we're doing it, the county's doing it, or private industry, that was off by 1/3 of the entire budget. Nonetheless, you've done a tremendous job today representing the Housing Authority, and I think it's great. Colleagues, here's what I think that we can do, because I cannot support anything that's going to impact any of our current programming. I will fall on the sword for the Neighborhood First plans. We fought long and hard and worked with the neighborhoods for that. However, we're looking at a $4 million deficit. Walk with me here, Diane, okay? I think that the CRA can do a letter of commitment for $1 million. If you look at our budget right now, we have the capacity of about $616 million that's unencumbered, correct?
1,000.
Yeah, excuse me, 1,000 that's unencumbered, okay? Technically speaking, making a $500,000 commitment today would not impact the other program that we have. This budget, excuse me?
Are you talking about this fiscal year, this upcoming that we're approving? Okay.
Correct. So this budget represents a 14% increase over last year's budget. Even say we have a mild recession and we have a 10% increase over this year for fiscal year 23-24, okay? That's still going to generate about $500,000. My point is that I feel comfortable making $1 million commitment through the CRA, okay, for the letter of intent, without it impacting the programming that we have. And I think we can do that, and I think that we will be fine, and I am comfortable with that move. Diane, I'm also very comfortable that then the rest of the $3 million we split between the city and the county. Now, this letter of commitment is contingent on the county agreeing next Tuesday to $1.5 million. I am committed as mayor, and I'm looking at my colleagues. If the county comes to the table with 1.5, the CRA comes with 1, at our next meeting, we could do $1.5 million to the city for a total of $4 million to fill the gap. But I can't see how we can do more than $1 million at the CRA without significantly impacting the programming that we've agreed to, handshook, and voted on, looking the residents in the eyes for the Neighborhood First program, which would be the greatest impact, because that's the greatest expenditure that we have. But I think that we can also help out. So I am willing today, and I would love to hear what you have to say, everyone. And Diane, being the maker of the motion, and my dear friend and mentor, I want to hear what you have to say. I think that we can do $1 million to the CRA, with the county coming with 1.5 and with us coming with 1.5. I mean, look, we're also the city, right? If we agree today, we're going to make this happen at the next city commission meeting because it'll be a priority. But this is where I am. Diane, what you thinking? Commissioner?
I'm just not that comfortable with what we can do with the city budget. We just covered a $4 million deficit with the city budget. We're already borrowing $1 million of ARPA funds as of last night from another year. So I'm not comfortable. We have a greater opportunity in the CRA than we do in the city budget for any money. The city budget is airtight, it's tight. And to the point that where last night we had to borrow $300,000 from another year. Whereas if we're looking at CRA, again, we're not talking about writing a check today. We're not talking about writing a check tomorrow. I would be more comfortable with Tawana walking out of here today with a commitment of $2 million so that she can go to the county and say they're willing to do half of what we need. Can you do the rest? But to send her over there with a $1 million commitment to me is weak, because this is where the funding is available. And I understand about the neighborhood first plans, but let's think about the neighborhood first plans. How fast is the money in the neighborhood first plans being spent? It's not. It's not. We're at the end of the fiscal year. And the Frenchtown Neighborhood First Plan, how much money has been spent from the Frenchtown Neighborhood First Plan this fiscal year? But they had, what was the allocation for this year?
They have 3.9 million. It was what they currently have available for Frenchtown Neighborhood First.
And as of September 30th, 2022.
They haven't spent anything yet. They are trying to.
Yeah, I understand. And so it will continue to roll for the period of time. And then each year, it's like a $2 million.
Well, so $2 million for 23, 300,000 for 24, and 200,000 for 25, and that would be it for their allocation.
Which will allow them the opportunity to get back in line to ask for more money. Yes, that's what happens. That's Providence.
Potentially, but again, Providence and South City are in a pipeline as well. So again,
Providence in a different. Again, we're at 2022, 2025. We have no crystal ball. We don't know what's going to happen. We don't. I want to believe that what is going to happen is going to be a positive thing. But if we're sitting here now and allow this project to fail because we're concerned about where the money is going to come from in 2025, but in other areas, we're spending money from an upcoming year, I'm just not sure that I can really buy that. This is really, really important.
It is.
This is housing for people. You know, this is not an event. This is life coming at us real fast. And today, she didn't ask for a check. In June, they told us in June. So it's not like we're hearing it for the first time today. It's really real now, because September 16th, they need to have some commitment. And so I just feel very strongly that we need to do whatever we're going to do today, or we just need to walk away and say we're not going to do it, and just deal with it that way. And that's just how I feel about it, because it's to me, it's just that important. If we weren't going to do it, then we should have, said that in June. And then they could have had some bake sales or whatever you need to do to raise some money. But right now, it's like we have a place to get the money, but we don't need it now. We don't need it to 2025. We can have a whole heap of bake sales by then. So I'm just saying, I don't want to send her out of here on one leg. We either send her out of here with a letter that provides some strength that she can go over to the county commission with, because we are leaders. Send her across the street with a strong commitment so that others will join us in this commitment, as they have done in other events that we've done. We've done it with Status of Men and Boys. We've done it with some other things that we've had to come together with. And no slight on Ms. Williams for not being here today. She sent her able staff. She is on the road. So, She didn't know she needed to be here until today because they said what they needed to say in June. They were all here. One person's sick. So what do we want? I just think we need to do a letter of commitment for $2 million. It is available today. Where it comes from is a hard place, but she doesn't need it today. So by the time she needs it, we can find a softer place to get it from. It doesn't hurt the Neighborhood First plans today because our fiscal year ends in a few days and they haven't spent it. So I don't know what else to say. To me, I'm treating it like it's my checkbook. And this is how we do the budget at the Cox House. What you need right now, we'll get you what you need right now. What you need in the future, we'll work on that. And y'all heard me say, the way I calculate the future and present value of money, if presently you don't have it, the future ain't gonna matter. And right now, the future does matter because these are people needing to move back into these apartments. But they gotta have something for us to move back into.
Commissioner Porter.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I have a clarifying question for you, Mr. Mayor. The 1.5 million commitment from the city, what did you have in mind as far as the fiscal year that would come from?
Sure. So when we look at the city budget, we're looking at actually two different budgets, right? You have your operating budget, which was dealing with the ARPA money from last night, but I feel very comfortable when we talk about capital budget. And that's really what we're talking about. And so when we look at our capital budget and we look at 5 years out, I feel a whole lot more comfortable planning in the capital budget for $1.5 million, which is definitely doable and accountable without impacting our other capital projects. And I think that we could do that a lot easier than trying to fit it in to the CRA budget. I mean, that's my idea.
Okay, and that's what I thought. I just wanted to clarify. I agree with you, Mr. Mayor, and I frankly think that the commitment that what we're discussing is a lot stronger than giving $2 million. It's more than $2 million, and I think it's a more likely, a more comfortable ask of the county, I personally think. The city has a substantially larger budget than the CRA. I don't agree with the difference of the timing. I think it applies in the same way across the board. It's a letter of intent. That's the case for the city, for the county, and the CRA. I do think there's much less wiggle room in our CRA budget. I don't see a plan for how the Neighborhood First programs wouldn't be impacted. This seems like an alternative to me that makes a lot of sense, and that if we vote accordingly, I would hope would give you the assurance that as we are the CRA board, we are also the city.
Yes.
And so I don't understand you walk away with more money. So I would make a substitute motion that we commit as a CRA to $1 million today and have it brought back to us at the city at $1.5 million commitment, and included in that a request to the county, supportive of that, of the 1.5 million.
There's a substitute motion on the table. Is there a second? I'll second it for discussion. I want you to know I've asked the attorney, CRA, to see if Reese or Abena can come down and join this conversation on behalf of.
You need more than Reese and Urbana. You need budget folks.
Right.
So hopefully they'll bring them with them. And that was what I was going to say. I'm no budget expert. I don't feel comfortable saying what we can do with our city budget based on what we went through last night. Because if we could have done it last night, then we wouldn't have been borrowing from a future year to balance our budget last night.
It's a different budget.
Sir?
Commissioner Matley.
It's the city budget, the $1 billion budget that we worked on last night, that we borrowed money from ARPA funds from a future year to balance our budget last night.
Right, but it's the capital improvement budget versus the operating budget.
It's the city's budget, period.
Commissioner Matley.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I don't feel comfortable allocating $1.5 million of city money we haven't even had the first budget workshop of next year's cycle at a CRA meeting where there's no public input or awareness of the issue. I mean, that's putting a huge burden. That's forecasting our very first conversation of what next year's budget at the city should look like. With the deadlines that we're talking about today, we also don't meet as a city for 2 weeks, and we can't, we could agree to make a letter of intent, but we won't be adopting a budget for those fiscal years until next October. So anything could change along those lines. I don't think it's appropriate to spend city dollars at a CRA meeting. I think if the intent was to spend city dollars, it should have come to the meeting yesterday. But that being said, I think we can accomplish both goals by implementing a $2 million letter of intent from the CRA today. And when we do reconvene as the city, we did something historic in the city budget this year when we actually made Neighborhood First plans a line item budget in the city budget. So we can add a 1.5 million, we can discuss a $1.5 million Neighborhood First additional commitment in the city budget as that comes up, but I don't think we should be forcing the city hands today. And I believe, Mr. Cox, in our conversations, while we want to be removing funding, at the end of the day, we would still have enough funds to fully fund what we've committed to the neighborhoods. Is that correct?
No.
Over the course.
If we did how much? I'm sorry.
If we did $2 million, we wouldn't be removing it by 2025. We would be able to defer the money that would go to the neighborhoods, but they would still be able to get the same amount that's previously been committed?
We can get about $600,000 this current fiscal year, and then we would have to look at where we get the remaining money. We do anticipate from the 5-year allocation, we do anticipate that there will be some uncommitted dollars, so we have some money there, but we don't know until we get all of those information on that. But we do have, we would essentially have to, without knowing how much that is, we would have to essentially, cut back on programs and things like that. But there is, we do anticipate that we have that flexibility.
So this year we would have 600,000 uncommitted?
Yes.
Just where we stand today?
Right. So without affecting any programs, we have 616,000 that we could contribute to Orange Avenue.
Okay. And without adding any additional programs a consecutive year, we can likely expect to have that much money or more uncommitted?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So if we're looking at a 4-year horizon, there's likely $2 million. We'd be able to fully fund on a 4 to 6 year horizon the neighborhood plans that are being expended yet, as well as the Orange Avenue?
Yes, sir. It's essentially, when it comes to, 24, we aren't contributing anything to future Neighborhood First plans. We don't do that until 25. We have, I think, $1 million set aside for that to start building up what essentially will go to Providence. But I mean, we can tweak the numbers.
But what you're saying is postponing and pushing back.
Yes, sir.
The contribution to Providence. Let's be very clear of what we've been talking about establishing a Neighborhood First plan. That we will fund it, but we're pushing it back years.
Not necessarily years, push it back a year. But again, we wouldn't have to use all 1 million of future Neighborhood First money, because if we do certain amount from 23 and then some from 24, that 25 money, we may not even need to touch that necessarily. But we don't know that yet.
Okay. Well, in the interest of accomplishing both, I think we should move forward with a $2 million letter of commitment today, and also bring this conversation to the City Commission to see if we can line item Providence the same way we did Griffin Heights for additional funding to make up any types of deficits. I think it accomplishes the same thing, but that the mayor proposed of splitting the funding, except it gives them the commitment today to bring to the county to ask for $2 million. I think.
Actually, what you're proposing is different because you're mixing operating and capital. You're talking about taking money out of,
That's where they are in our budget.
taking money and putting it into a neighborhood first plan, which would be operating out of the city budget, not capital improvement, because our neighborhood first plans come out of general revenue and operating. Neighborhood first
Capital
plan,
improvement budget.
it does not come out of the capital improvement budget of the city of Tallahassee. The neighborhood first plan, the Griffin Heights neighborhood first plan, comes out of operating, does not come out of capital, okay? So it is apples and oranges when we're talking about budgeting. Let's just be clear about that. Now, if we decide to move forward with that, then technically we are going to allocate every penny that we have, and there is nothing left for any other project, period.
But, I mean, we have for example, in 24, we were projecting to have $1 million for medium and large projects. So, I mean, if we wanted to cut back on that, we could. So, I mean, there's things that we can take money from to accommodate that. But again, it's up for you all to decide if that's something you want to do.
Sheila, can you put the slide back up with the proposed budget for next year?
Attachment 2 may help with some of the conversation. So if we could have attachment 2 brought up on the screen. It gives you your 5-year outlook, and so it shows where we have some available funds in the future years for fiscal year 24 and 25. So you can make that larger.
You can look at it on your screen, too.
So if you could scroll down to where it says capital expenses, non-contractual. And just right there is probably, yeah, that's good. So if you look at, these are the capital expenses. What's in the blue is the fiscal year 22, our current, that's the adopted and the actual. What's in the yellow highlighted is the fiscal year 2023 preliminary values for what we're asking you to adopt today. And then the last 4 columns is fiscal year 24, 25, 26, and 27. So you'll notice in fiscal year 24, we have an unavailable spending of $2.1 million after we've put in for the programs like our medium and large. We've also did not have any neighborhood first, except for Frenchtown has $300,000. And then in 25, we give Frenchtown $200,000. And then in fiscal year 25, we also allocated 1.2 to future neighborhood first programs, hoping that Providence would be online by that time. We're not sure if they will or not. But based on our projections, and if our TIF is calculated and it comes in as we projected, bearing any recessions, then our available fund balance for fiscal year 24 would be $2.1 million, and for fiscal year 25 would be $2.4 million. So we have some flexibility in those future years to fund the Orange Avenue apartments, as long as nothing drastically happens. So, and we can still fund our future neighborhood first plans as well.
So let me make sure I hear you absolutely clear. What you're saying is that we can sign a letter of intent today for $2 million, and it is not going to impact a single penny of the current spending plan of any neighborhood first.
That's correct.
If y'all stand by that, I will support it.
Yes, sir.
Based on what we have here and what they know as of right now, without a crystal ball.
Okay, then let's move forward. I hope you're all right. I will support the original motion on the table, making sure, once again, that I have got your 100% complete backing that not a single penny dedicated to a neighborhood first plan will be diverted at all.
I can agree.
Okay, I'm good. Let's do it.
But you got to deal with the substitute motion that's on the table first.
I'll withdraw the motion.
Okay, we got the reassurance from staff that nothing will be impacted, period, and that we could do the letter of intent. I will support the motion, absolutely. All right, Commissioner Matlow, any?
Yeah, just a final thought. I'm going to support the motion as well, but and this may be a city commission conversation to dig into the capital improvement plan. I pulled it up as we were sitting here, and Neighborhood First is a line item paid for by 2020 sales tax for $2 million annually, which is part of our capital improvement plan. So I think maybe in the future we could break that out into a separate workshop and really discuss those items.
Motion on the table. Commissioner Porter, comments?
I'm good. I'm ready to vote.
All right. All those in favor of the motion on the table signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed. Passes 4-0 with with the Mayor Pro Tem not attending the meeting.
Thank you so very much.
All right. Do we have any other public comment on the budget?
Mr. Mayor?
We need a motion, by the way, to pass the budget.
Okay, I understand that, but in regards to this letter of intent, when can, letter of commitment, when can she receive that letter?
As soon as Mr. Cox writes that letter of intent and puts it on my desk for signature, I will sign it and we'll get it out the door.
Because she's going to need it. She's going to need it for the county.
There you go.
Thank you.
All right. Is there a motion to approve the budget?
So moved.
Properly moved by Commissioner
Second.
Porter, seconded by Commissioner Diane Williams-Cox. Seeing no further comment, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed. Passes unanimously 4-0. All right. Sharing of ideas. Commissioner Porter.
Nothing for me today.
All right. Commissioner Williams-Cox.
Thank you, colleagues, for walking with me to make this happen for our community. That's it.
Commissioner Matlow.
Great work. Thank you.
All right. We're adjourned.